Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.
Fight the spread and take a stand against coronavirus. Wear a mask in public. Stay at least 6 feet apart from others. And get tested. Join us and fight the spread. Visit scdhec.gov/COVID-19.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Trey Taylor, and you are watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. I'm Trey Taylor, and it's Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, and Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday from the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina. Well, it's actually Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and Yvonne Donald and Shantae Woodhouse joins us. Yvonne is with the Sickle Cell Foundation. She joins us today to talk about the disease and provide updates, treatments, and more. Plus, Shantae Woodhouse is a mother of 3, all with sickle cell. Her amazing story next on Coping with COVID. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us, Trey.
Absolutely. We'll join these ladies next on Coping with COVID. But first, your COVID community updates. The winner of the Richland County District 9 seat will be decided September 22nd. There was no clear winner during last night's special election. Both Janika Farr and Jessica Mackey received more than 30% of the vote, but not the majority. Again, that runoff is September 22nd. The Richland County Voter Registration and Elections Office still needs more volunteers. There are about 1,000, and they actually need about 1,800. They say they want to make certain they have enough in November. Volunteers must live in Richland and or an adjoining county, be a registered voter, be able to work at least 12 hours, and attend a mandatory training. Now, workers are paid between $180 and $240. The office says they are working on a plan to speed up wait times and make the process more efficient and effective. Now, if you're interested in working the polls, you can email election.worker@richlandcountysc.gov or call 803-576-1532. Several local restaurants are holding hiring events. Lizard's Thicket is actually reopening their locations due to COVID. In-person interviews will be held until 4 o'clock today at their Beltline location, and then tomorrow from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. in Lexington. Now, applicants must wear a mask, bring your ID or birth certificate, passport, or social security card. Insomnia Cookies and 5 Points is also doing on-the-spot interviews Saturday from 2 until 10 p.m. And whether you're hired or not, you get a free cookie. That's enough just to go and get an interview just for that. Also hiring is other locations hiring include Kudzu Bakery and Market, Forest Drive, Divino Rosa, formerly Restaurant Divino on Gervais Street, Ratio and Elgin, also Savage Craft Ale, the former West Columbia Fire Department on Center Street, Enzo's Deli on Green Street, Republican Beer Garden on Senate Street, and in Chapin, 3 locations, Griffin Chop House, Bacon Southern Eatery, and Martin Fresco. SCDHEC continues their ongoing COVID testing. For the most up-to-date times, dates, and locations, visit scdhec.gov, and please check the bottom of the screen for more information about COVID testing in and around South Carolina. Also scrolling on the bottom of the screen is information about the DHEC Care Line. Now, you can call that number for information about the virus, information about testing, and if you need a ride to get a COVID test. Also, would you like to host a COVID test in your community at your event? That information is also scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Now, if you would like to get a free food box, they're giving them away at Brooklyn Baptist Church, Northeast and West Columbia tomorrow and next Thursday from 1 until 4 o'clock. And don't forget about maskofcolumbiasc.com. That's right. Go to that website, post a picture of yourself in a cool mask, and you could win some great prizes. Get your family and friends to like and share. It's maskofcolumbiasc.com. Now, if you're facing eviction or foreclosure, you can get free help from the South Carolina Bar Association and SC Legal. They have combined to offer a free hotline number. Now that's 833-958-2266. Now that's a toll-free number. They also have information on pandemic-related legal help and resources for emergency rental assistance. Check the bottom of the screen for information about that. That That website is scbar.org/COVID help. Also, SC Thrive is offering up to $1,500 in rental assistance, and Palmetto Community Partnership offers various services, including assistance with childcare, bills, and housing payments. Richland County Office of Small Business Opportunities is holding an important webinar this Thursday about diversity, inclusion, and equity. It's a free session and includes great information from corporations like BMW, Dominion, and Optus about how to do business with large companies. Registration info is on the screen. And the young CEOs and leaders of tomorrow will hold a voter registration and census parade from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. this Saturday at Trinity Baptist Church. Coping with COVID is being streamed live on the Tailor Made Productions page on Facebook. Please go over there and like and share. Not only will you be able to watch Coping with COVID Monday through Saturday at 2 p.m., you'll get all of your COVID-related updates. We're also streaming live on the In It Together page. Please like and share that information also about updates about living healthy and a productive life. I'm Trey Taylor, and you are watching Coping with COVID. It's brought to you by In It Together, the Diabetes Advisory Council. And coming up a little bit later on, you'll get a chance to win the Trey birthday giveaway. That's right. It's my birthday, and you get the prizes. Your chance to win coming up: a Coping with COVID reusable mask, also 10 disposable masks, Sabriti body butter, and gift certificates from Deneen the Coffee Queen, European Wax Center, New York High Style, a Jesus Always sampler, and more. And as a matter of fact, today, Yvonne has given us a sickle cell, a James R. Clark sickle cell mask to give away today. Thank you, Yvonne, so much. You see, she's modeling it right there. So your chance to win comes up today. Want to first thank everyone for joining us on Coping with COVID. Candace Belton says, yay. Hello, Mrs. Donald. She says hi to you. Candace Belton says also, Ronald Rich is watching. Want to say hi to Ronald. And also Frida Burrell says, you're absolutely fantastic. She loves you. I don't know if she's saying that to me or you, but I'll take it, and you can too, Yvonne. Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
We'll both take it.
So thank you guys so much for watching. Please post and share this information out so we can get this information to the masses, because although a lot of people know a lot about sickle cell, Yvonne, unfortunately, I think that there's still some, I don't know, there's still a shroud of confusion about sickle cell. Wouldn't you think so? And then you've been working with at James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation for over 20 years.
Right, I have, Trey. And there is still a lot of confusion, misconceptions, a lot of misunderstanding about sickle cell disease. In fact, many people are not even aware of what sickle cell disease really is.
Wow. Well, why don't you tell us?
They hear the term sickle cell.
Right.
Sometimes people fuse sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease, and they're two distinctly different things in the health arena. But sickle cell disease is a disease of the red blood cells. And normally our red blood cells are nice and round and soft and supple, and they travel easily through the tiny veins in the body, which there are millions of those in our body. And an individual who has sickle cell disease has cells that are actually sickle shaped, shaped like a crescent moon or a half a donut or a banana. And while they're sickle shaped, they're also hard, they're rigid, and they're sticky. And when they try to travel through the tiny veins to deliver oxygen throughout the body, they can get trapped. And when that trapping occurs, it can cut off the circulation of blood and oxygen to every cell, tissue, and organ in the body. Needless to say, per the description, it can cause excruciating pain.
Wow.
Imagine parts of your body being cut off of circulation of blood and oxygen. Just imagine that. It can cause excruciating pain, which is the hallmark of this disease. And sometimes a pain that's associated with sickle cell disease can be unimaginable. We've had it described as thrashing, ravaging. We had a board member one time who had sickle cell disease, and he actually described it as if he described it as if someone was performing a live amputation. He said the pain was from a standpoint seemed just that extreme.
Wow.
We've had other patients to say it feels almost like lightning just striking all over your body, or someone taking a knife. T-Boz actually said that.
Right, right.
Having a knife and just stabbing you all over your body. So the
Yeah.
pain with sickle cell disease, first of all, is very misunderstood. And there are
Wow.
many, many stigmas that surround the pain that's associated with sickle cell disease.
Right. Well,
And
and I want to talk about that a little bit later about the stigmas and the racial disparities. But let's talk a little bit about why does it primarily affect African Americans?
it primarily affects African Americans here in the United States. Now, on a worldwide,
Oh,
global
okay.
basis, it does not necessarily primarily just affect African Americans. But the reason for that is because of the beginnings of it all. Sickle cell trait actually began as a evolutionary defense against malaria. So, anywhere on the globe where you have had massive outbreaks of malaria, you will have sickle cell trait because it was an evolutionary design of nature to protect individuals who lived in subtropical hot regions, those that were close to the equator, were surrounded by lots of water. So therefore, you have places like Africa, you have places like Afghanistan, even Italy, Saudi Arabia, all India, South America, all of these countries that are close to the equator, we call them equatorial regions, wherein there were massive, well, I guess you could say pandemic-like malaria outbreaks. And in these regions, the body tried to find a way to protect itself. So
Right.
individuals began to be born with a hardened cell. And that hardened cell actually prevented the malaria parasite from invading the blood system. So as individuals and areas grew, more and more people were born with sickle cell trait. It became easier for individuals with sickle cell trait to have a child with someone else with the trait. Anytime two individuals with sickle cell trait come together and have a child, there's a 25% chance that that child could be born with full-blown sickle cell disease. It's called the recessive gene.
So it is hereditary.
It is hereditary, passed down only through the genes. Only through the genes. It doesn't skip a generation. It's passed down only through the genes. And if both parents have sickle cell trait and it's passed down to that child, it's a 1 in 25% chance again. There's a 25% chance that that child could be born with full-blown sickle cell disease.
We're talking to Yvonne Donald with the James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation. It's Wellness Wednesday, In It Together, and the Diabetes Advisory Council present Wellness Wednesday every Wednesday. Want to say hi to Ronald Rich, also Candace Belton. She says hello from Lorraine Dunbar as well. She says, we love y'all. We love y'all too, Candace and Lorraine. I guess they're watching together. Also, the Be Strong group says, thank you for spreading the awareness. Thank you so much. And also, Doris Ely says hello. Johanna Bridgette has a question. Yvonne, and then we're going to go to a video. She wants to know, she needs information for children with the trait. She also has another question. For example, she says they've been told to take additional vitamin D supplements. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think it can hurt. First of all, always, check with your doctor when you're dealing, when you're working with supplements, when you want to put supplements in your diet, always check with your doctor. But of course, vitamin D is an essential element. I mean, we all, one of the reasons vitamin D is also essential to individuals with sickle cell disease. So it's a very good supplement to take. And we also advise hydration for individuals who have sickle cell trait. And we also advise that they not be pushed to total exertion and dehydration. This is something that has come full front in the last several years. The NCAA actually requires that those who are going to college with scholarships and indulging in sports actually have a sickle cell test.
Oh, wow.
Because if they are overexerted, if they are dehydrated, and that's the same thing with the military as well, for basic training and military runs and everything, that there can be some manifestation of some of the symptoms of sickle cell disease. So that is a very rare incident, but we do like to educate the public to let them know that those occurrences can happen, but it is very rare. Also, if you ever see blood in your child's urine, be sure and talk to your doctor. That's called hematuria. But for the most part, sickle cell trait is a benign condition that doesn't affect you and has very minimal effects, if at any.
Wow. We want to ask, Johanna says, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. Hey, Johanna, thank you so much for your question. I want to get into more about a sickle cell trait, about the challenges you mentioned, fatigue, pain. Want to talk about advancement and racial disparities. But first, you have a video that you want to share. Tell us a little bit about the video before we share it, Yvonne.
Okay, well, it just gives some of the symptoms, and it also has a video illustration of how the blood actually gets trapped. The sickle cells actually gets trapped as they're traveling through the veins. So It's a really good illustration of how sickle cell disease affects the body.
Great. All right, let's go to the video.
Know the effects.
Some of the effects of sickle cell disease include anemia, pain, infection, jaundice, acute chest syndrome, pneumonia, organ damage, stroke, psychosocial issues, social, emotional, academic. When the sticky sickle cells become lodged in blood vessels, a number of problems can occur depending on the location of the blockage. Clogging of the spleen can prevent it from fighting off germs in the body, leading to increased risk of infections. This is why a fever is a medical emergency for a child with sickle cell disease.
Pain as it relates to sickle cell disease is one of the most common complications that we see in patients who have sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease. When you don't have oxygen, when you have a lack of oxygen to the tissues, it causes tissue damage and sometimes tissue death, what we call tissue necrosis, which sends off signals that cause pain. And there are times where there can be chronic areas that have had repeated damage. So repeated insults of lack of oxygen to a particular tissue, which can cause more permanent damage or scarring.
Wow. Yvonne, Johanna mentioned that her daughter had sickle cell trait, and you mentioned in the beginning that people confuse the trait with the disease. What is the difference?
Well, if you have sickle cell trait, you inherited one copy of the gene that can produce sickle cell disease. If you have sickle cell disease, you inherited it too. Okay. The sickle gene, again, occurred as a result of a defense against malaria. That's what it has been theorized. However, many people sometimes think that the trait can actually make you sick. Or sometimes they'll come in for our newborn screening clinics and they'll have different problems, maybe problems with respiratory problems or other ailments, and they'll think that it's associated with sickle cell trait. For the most part, sickle cell trait, again, does not make you sick. And if it does, those effects are very, very, very minimal and often occur in an adverse situation like high altitudes or low pressure. For instance, we do not advise individuals with sickle cell trait to take up like mountain climbing, like, people try to climb Mount Everest. And those type of things, because the higher you go, the less oxygen. Right. And a person who has sickle cell trait, their bone marrow produces a small percentage of sickle cells, while it produces a predominant amount of normal red blood cells. It does produce a small percentage of those sickle cells. And in adverse situations, like high altitudes, low oxygen, like for instance, we don't advise individuals with sickle cell trait to do a whole lot of scuba diving. The further you go into the water, the more pressure, the less oxygen. Swimming is fine. Normal sports is fine. But again, you don't want to be pushed to total exertion.
Right. You want to overexert yourself. Yeah. So you mentioned something about diagnosing it. Are you typically diagnosed at birth?
Actually, you're tested at birth for both.
Okay.
Through the newborn screening program. And that's been occurring here in South Carolina since April of 1987. So every infant that's born is actually tested in the hospital for both sickle cell trait and sickle cell disease and an array of other genetic disorders. And so, yes, a mother can know at birth whether or not her child has sickle cell disease. And generally, they're notified, hopefully within 6 weeks, with that 6-week checkup from their doctor, if their baby is born with sickle cell trait. And then we do follow-up counseling.
Oh, do you? Great.
Yes, of parents of children who are born with sickle cell trait as well. And it's very important to know, especially if your child is born with sickle cell disease, because oftentimes the doctors will start them off on penicillin, prophylactic penicillin, because sickle cell disease can affect the immune system. And so all of those, the susceptibilities that babies have, it helps ward off and protect that baby as they grow with those vulnerabilities that are associated with sickle cell disease.
It's Sickle Cell Awareness Month. We're talking to Yvonne Donald with the James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation. She's been there 22 years. And actually, Yvonne, you, as they say, you're not just the hair club president. You are a user. You have sickle cell yourself.
No, I don't.
Oh, I thought you told me you did. I'm so sorry.
No, I said I was a breast cancer survivor.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought you said that you had to deal with that and that at the same time. So let's talk a little bit about, because you said the pain and exhaustion are one of the two symptoms that are the most challenging. What are the types of treatments? You mentioned the penicillin, but I know that there are some challenges for folks, particularly, people of color, when we are trying to get relief for that pain.
Right. And that was what I was referring to when I was saying that I was a breast cancer survivor, because the entire time when I was going through chemotherapy and I got increased infections and I got sick really, really easy. There was never a time that I went to the hospital that I was ever challenged about the legitimacy of my disease. But individuals with sickle cell disease, when they go to the ER, go to the hospital, sometimes in the medical arena, they're constantly challenged about the legitimacy of the pain that's associated with sickle cell disease. And we're in the year of 2020. We still do not have a test. We've made some great strides. We really have made some great strides. I mean, for about 20 years, we only had really one drug, hydroxyurea. Mm-hmm. And in the last few years, several new drugs have been developed and prescribed for individuals with sickle cell disease. But we still do not have a test, if you walk in the ER, that can signify whether a person is in a sickle cell trait, a sickle cell pain crisis. Oh. So therefore, it is still their word. And oftentimes a person with sickle cell disease, when I had breast cancer, I lost my hair. I looked sick.
Right.
A person with sickle cell disease can walk in the ER and not look sick.
Right.
But they're saying, I'm sick, I'm in pain. And sometimes there have been stigmas, whereas individuals with sickle cell disease have been branded or labeled as drug seekers.
Wow.
And
all they're trying to do is get relief from the pain.
Trying to get relief from the pain. I mean, can you imagine, as I said earlier, having red blood cells trapped in those tiny arteries and not being able to have blood flow? You can sleep on your arm and wake up and your arm is numb. Yeah. So just imagine, actual blockages throughout your body of trapped blood and oxygen. This pain that's associated with sickle cell disease can be excruciating. And again, we don't have a test to actually, signify whether a person is in a crisis. So again, it is still them going into the ER and saying, I'm in pain, I'm in a pain crisis, and I need help. And oftentimes they are met with preconceived thoughts of why they're there and what they're seeking.
That's terrible. So Yvonne, a couple of questions. First, so do doctors not prescribe sickle cell patients pain meds?
They do, but I will say that oftentimes with the pain management of sickle cell disease, sickle cell is individualized. I could have sickle cell disease. You could have sickle cell disease, Trey, and someone else could have sickle cell disease, and it will affect us all very differently.
Yeah.
And if you have a chronic illness, I mean, I think we can all relate to this. Any of us who have had any degree of pain over years, you build up a tolerance
Yeah. Yeah.
for whatever medication that you are taking. Sometimes those medications have to be readjusted, they have to be altered. And most of the time, sickle cell patients know exactly what they need to make that pain go away.
Well, because
First of all,
your body. You know your
you
body.
know your body.
Yeah.
And first of all, I want to say, and this is important, patients don't want to go to the ER.
Right.
Sickle cell patients don't want to go to the ER and sit
Nobody
up
wants
for
to go, girl. Nobody.
3 and 4 and 5 and 6
Right.
hours and wait to be
Right.
seen or be admitted to the hospital. They don't want to go to the hospital. And oftentimes they do all they can to treat this illness at home. But then when they have to go, they find themselves having to go. Sometimes they are met with discriminatory thoughts or preconceived ideas as to why they're there and the reason that they're seeking pain relief.
Do you think it is racial? And I hate to ask that because here's the thing, it primarily affects us, you know?
Yeah,
and I think we would be naive to say, particularly in these days and time, that racism does not exist. It does. So do you think it is primarily racial biased?
Okay, I'll tell you what, you can do your own research, and I can challenge your audience to do this. Challenge your viewers to compare the funding between hemophilia and cystic fibrosis compared to sickle cell disease. And also, let's look at the opioid crisis. Mm-hmm. Let's look at how it has been ingratiated and met with just a high demand to help to remedy this situation.
Right.
Individuals with sickle cell disease here in the United States, they are primarily African American. And I have a wonderful doctor, Dr. Haywood. He's works for Johns Hopkins, written many articles about sickle cell. And he has said this, an African American walking in an ER, for instance, even in New York or wherever, and saying, I need pain meds. Oftentimes that's not met with the same degree of tolerance, or even as I said with myself as a breast cancer patient, my disease was never challenged. I never had to prove, I have cancer. This is what I need to feel better. But patients with sickle cell disease find themselves time and time and time and time again having to prove and justify their need for pain medications for a disease that causes excruciating pain. There is not a day that goes by with a person with sickle cell disease, with this condition, that they are not in some degree of pain.
Oh, wow.
Whether that pain is lowered on those very good days, there's still some degree. But when this pain is elevated to a point of pain crises, the pain can be intolerable. And this should be considered. I mean, think about it. We go in pharmacy, it's rolls and rolls and hours of pain meds. So if a person's knee is hurting, they can go, you know what I'm saying, to the pharmacy.
Right, get some Advil. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? So we look for relief from pain. It's natural. And even more so for someone whose pain symptoms, pain is the hallmark of this disease.
Yeah.
And just as the video showed, each time a person has a pain crisis, is affecting an organ. It's affecting an organ. I mean, we have patients sometimes that end up having to have hip replacement. They have to have their spleen removed. It affects the organs. If they have a cold, it can turn into pneumonia because it does affect the immune system. So this is a disease with layering manifestations that often are not seen, but that are felt deeply within the body.
Right.
And that are being affected within every working system of the body. There's strokes that can occur from the blood clots of sickle cell disease. It can affect the kidney, of course, the spleen. Pain can be felt in the back, the legs, all over. Anywhere blood flows, pain
which is everywhere. Which is everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Anywhere blood flows, pain can be felt. or there can be some type of damage that occurs.
Forgiving Heart says, this is so true. They just need relief. It can affect people differently. Johanna Bridgette says her daughter tested negative at birth. She said she requested her pediatrician to retest because her dad had the trait. She said that's when she tested positive. She said she did have severe jaundice as a newborn. Thank you for your comment, Johanna, and for sharing your information. Yvonne joins us today. It is a Sickle Cell Awareness Month, and you're watching Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. It's brought to you in part by SCDHEC, In It Together, and the Diabetes Advisory Council. Yvonne Donald has been with James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation for some 22 years, working and advocating for and with folks with sickle cell disease. And when we come back, we're going to talk to Ashante Woodhouse, who has 3 children with sickle cell. We'll talk to her about her journey and theirs next on Coping with COVID. Plus, your chance to win the Trey birthday giveaway. September is my birthday, and you get the prizes. And Yvonne just threw into all of the prizes a James R. Clark sickle cell mask. So not only will you get the prizes that we've been giving away all month long, you'll be able to get that beautiful mask. That's next on Coping with COVID. I'm Trey Taylor.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.
Palmetto Media Connection, established in 2010, connecting media and communities together, hosting annual media socials and also bringing awareness to our communities. We are proud to sponsor Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor, and during this month of September, we say happy birthday, Trey. Find and like us on Facebook, Palmetto Media Connection, connecting media and communities together.
I'm Trey Taylor, and Coping with COVID and In It Together presents Wellness Wednesday from the Diabetes Advisory Council. September is Sickle Cell Awareness Month. We just spoke with Yvonne Donald with the James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation about the disease. And now Shante Woodhouse joins us. She has, oh, wait a minute. Did we lose Shante? Shante, you're upside down and inside out.
I don't know what happened. It didn't move.
Oh, I don't know what happened either. Well, can you rotate your yeah. There you go. Or either rotate it back and maybe you'll flip right. There you go. There you go. While Shante gets that together, I want to say hi to Doris Ely, who says you're doing a great job, Yvonne. Hey, Doris, thank you so much for joining us. Please post and share this information out so we can get this message to the masses, because as I said earlier, I mean, sickle cell disease has been around for how long, Yvonne?
Thousands of years.
Since the beginning of time.
Thousands of years. Seriously, thousands of years it's been around.
Yeah, but there's still so much misinformation and a shroud of mystery around it. Or so glad to be able to give out this information, because it does primarily affect the African American community, and there are some challenges. Shante Woodhouse, as I said, joins us, and she has 3 children with sickle cell. Shante, thank you so much for joining us. I have to tell you, how has it been dealing with 3 children with sickle cell?
Well, first of all, let me say thank you, Trey, for having us and for using your platform to help get knowledge out and educate those who may not be familiar with this illness.
Yeah.
It is definitely challenging.
And that's probably putting it lightly.
Yes. Yeah, I'm trying to search for a word I think that will go beyond challenging. But I don't think there is a description or an adjective that would be able to describe what it is for the warriors that battle this illness. And that's what I like to use, the warriors.
Yeah, the warriors. That's good.
They are definitely some fighters.
Do you or someone in your family have it? Did you or the children's father have sickle cell?
No, neither of us have the actual disease. We both just carry the trait, as Ms. Donald mentioned earlier. And we are that rarity in that all 3 of our children took that S gene from the both of us.
Right. And I was going to bring you in here for a minute, Yvonne. So because Shantae said that's rare. So it is rare for all three of their children to have sickle cell.
Yeah, that is somewhat rare, Trey. Oftentimes, one child can be born with the trait. The probabilities are this: 25% chance, no trait, no sickle cell disease; 50% chance, sickle cell trait; 25% chance, full-blown sickle cell disease. It's almost like it's all in how the genes match up at conception.
Right.
And so, yes, it is somewhat of a rarity that all of them matched up, that they inherited those two S genes. But certainly it is possible. We have had families wherein 5 children have had the disease.
Wow.
And while it is rare, oftentimes you'll have one child born with trait. You know what I'm saying? Then another child born with the disease, or either one child born with the disease and another child born with trait. But while it is rare that all 3 of them were born with full-blown sickle cell disease, it does occur.
Right. I want to say hi to Shelly Sachs, who just joined us. Hey, Shelly, thank you so much for joining us on Coping with COVID. In It Together presents Wellness Wednesday. We're talking about Sickle Cell Awareness Month. Shantae Woodhouse joins us. She has 3 children with sickle cell. So, Shantae, I won't ask you, has it been easy? Because I'm sure it's not been easy, but have you been able to, and Yvonne mentioned this the last segment, that sometimes the 3 of us could have it and the 3 of us react differently. Have all 3 of your children been completely different with the sickles? Wow. So as soon as you get to kind of get in a groove with one, the other one has completely different. Tell us about that.
Well, my children are 21, 19, and 16.
21,
2
19,
girls, and a boy.
Yeah.
My 2 daughters, the oldest one has minimal crises. My youngest baby girl, she has the most crises, the most excruciating levels of pain. And my son, you never know it.
Really?
He just toughs it out through everything.
Wow. So tell us about some of the symptoms they've been having, some of the challenges that they've had.
As Ms. Donald mentioned previously, there is no organ that is not impacted or not affected by this disease. I've had one child, she's had her gallbladder removed. One child that's scheduled to have hers removed. At 2, my oldest one had her spleen removed. We've had tonsil adenoidectomies multiple times. We've had to deal with the prior prism issues from my son. And for those that aren't familiar with that, that is something that affects the males that have sickle cell disease. A painful, long-lasting erection that sometimes requires medical treatment. And in my son's case, he did have to be hospitalized in Greenville to have a procedure done to get through that pain crisis.
Right. Wow. So, Yvonne, let me get you in here for a minute, because because Cheryl says, Shantae said that, 2 gallbladder removals, a spleen removal. So is it because when you don't have the, when you don't have the circulation, the good circulation, and it's cutting off oxygen to certain organs, is that why you have to have those removals?
Right. The lack of circulation of blood and oxygen can cause damage to those organs. I can give a good example with the hip replacement, shoulder pain, and that type thing. Those that, because of that lack of blood flow, those bones can start to deteriorate. And it's the same thing with what those organs. Now the spleen can actually get enlarged. Because the spleen actually filters out bacteria. Sometimes they kick out those sickle cells, and then sometimes they actually gorge them. and the spleen can get enlarged. And then when that occurs, the spleen can become damaged and it has to be removed. And of course, we know that the spleen is an essential part for immunity. So without your spleen, then you're even more susceptible to various infections. So yes, the organs are affected directly due to a lack of blood flow and oxygen.
Wow. S. Jane Brooks, thank you so much for joining us. She said she had technical difficulty getting on, but she's here. We're so glad you're here. She said she's glad to have this venue for education. Congratulations to you, Yvonne, and to the James R. Clark Sickle Cell Memorial Foundation. Thank you. Shelley Sachs says that she's 33 years old and have had it. She's been blessed to live a pretty healthy life. She said the older she gets, the better it was for her. Is that typically how it is? The older it gets better? I know life does. I don't know about sickle cells.
Shantae, you want me to answer that, or you would like to answer it?
Well, honestly, I can say just through my children's experiences, again, they've all been different, but one has not, and two have. So like everybody's case is different, you know.
Now, Shantae, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Yvonne. You were going to say.
I just wanted to say for our as a person lives with sickle cell disease, sometimes what happens is they know how to cope. They know what works and they know what doesn't. I just want to briefly
what makes it better. That's
right.
Kind of what makes it better. Yeah.
We recently just lost a sickle cell warrior, Valerie Chapman Scott. And one of the celebrations that the Warriors has as they age is that they do know how to deal. They know how it feels when it's coming on. Right. So they know exactly what to go ahead and do and put in place so that they don't get into a full-blown crisis if that's one that's preventable. But as they age, they learn how to cope. They know what works, what doesn't work, what to avoid, what not to avoid. And things like keeping themselves warm, not getting too cold, the adverse temperature changes, all of those can affect sickle cell disease. Right. A child with sickle cell can't jump in a cold pool, without necessarily having some type of effect. And so they just learn what works. So if it the getting better is in knowing how to actually live with it.
Yeah. Doris Ely wants to know, Shantae, what sickle type does each child have?
They all have type SS. I'm sorry.
SS. So, Yvonne, can we talk a little bit about what the different types are?
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad you asked me that, Trey, because I really wanted to address that when you were asking about primarily African Americans, but it's a different trait for different ethnicities.
Wow.
For instance, Asians have an E trait. The thalassemia trait came from Italy. You know how it's kicked out in the water, surrounded? If you were to Italy, the face of sickle cell would look like a white person. Native Americans have a D trait. Many African Americans, most of us have C or S trait. Arabs have an O trait. So it's different traits for different ethnicities.
Wow.
But however that S sickle gene combines with that trait is what determines the type of disease. And what Shantae is saying, what Doris asked, SS means that they inherited the two S genes. But S and C trait are very prevalent in the African American community and also in Hispanic. And in fact, it's estimated even with Caucasians that about 1 in 200 have the whites. Have the trait. Can I just give a quick example?
Yes,
right quick?
Please.
Yeah, in our newborn screening, we had an Italian a couple come in. He was from Italy. She was Caucasian. He was fully convinced that he had passed the trait to the baby. But when the test came back, actually, his Caucasian partner actually had the trait. So really, there is no race or culture that is exempt.
Right, right. As Jane Brooks says that she's 68 years old with the disease. She says she's finding the older she gets, the more severe crisis she has. She said down to having bones replaced. Thank you, Miss Brooks, so much for your comment. So, what are the numbers, Yvonne? How many people in the United States? Well, let's go to South Carolina. How many people in South Carolina do you know have sickle cell?
It's about 4,500.
And
Yeah,
then
it's over 4,000, and it's estimated about 100,000 in the United States. And Trey, the only reason that number stays steady like that is because we have so many people, unfortunately, to pass away from the disease.
Oh my goodness!
But it's about 2.5 to 3 million that are actually carriers of sickle cell trait.
Wow,
that's a lot of people, and
Yeah.
a lot of opportunities for two people with the trait. You know what I'm saying? To come together and have a child.
Right. So,
And,
Shante, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Yvonne.
No, I was going to say one day I would love to be able to talk about the whole biology of the trait.
Well,
a lot of times when we were young, our grandparents told you not to date someone that you were related to. We didn't know the biology behind it, but the biology behind it is that anytime two of the same gene come together, there can be a disorder.
Yeah.
And that is the whole premise of sickle cell disease. You have two of the same gene coming together, and it creates sickle cell disease.
So, Shante, did you know you knew you had this trait, and you did or you did not know?
No, we did not know that.
Really? You nor the children's parent, the father, knew that you had the trait?
I knew my mom was a carrier of the trait, and then no knowledge about he and I. And then
and he didn't know either.
No, he didn't know prior to us having our first child. And then he started to do more background research into his family.
After the first child had
his dad's side, he actually had siblings that have sickle cell disease.
Wow. So why didn't they know the trait why did it take them till they were adults, Yvonne, to know that they had the trait?
As I said, testing started in April of 1987.
Okay.
But then those who were not tested at birth, or, everybody, that's one of the reasons we have the newborn screening program.
Gotcha.
It's because we counsel patients, we counsel parents on how to educate their children and the importance of doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's really important. Even if it doesn't make you sick, it's important to know that you could pass the gene down.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, because here's the other thing. While we're out here, I'm a single one. While we're out here dating and thinking about marrying people, it's hard to say, hey, tell me your medical background. But if we're thinking about, right, Shante, I'm sure that's not something y'all sat down and talked about, but those are things
it's important
to find out if we're gonna have some children. Yeah.
Right.
It is
a long time ago,
just like it's important to know that man's credit score.
Yeah. And a long time ago, they used to have blood tests when you got married and different things like that. They kind of got away from all of those type things, where at least with that, starting off, a couple kind of knew, you know what I'm saying, what they were dealing with. But we do teach our parents that it's important for your child to know their genealogy. And also, if you're planning on having a child, or if you're dating someone, it is important to educate your partner on your genealogy. It's important to know what makes your body work, how it works, and what can be passed on to your child. It's really important. But for many people, Trey, honestly, it wasn't. They just didn't know. It wasn't their fault, because the education was not always there.
And
the education and awareness, and it was stigmatized. So until someone had trait, they didn't want to tell somebody. You see what I'm saying? Or if they had sickle cell disease, they didn't want to tell somebody.
Yeah. And that's the unfortunate thing about having a disorder. I'll just say disorder. We're dealing with that with COVID right now. People don't want to tell someone they even have had it, because there's so much stigma attached to having something, when we need to. It's almost like we'd rather not know than know. And those are the things that are really hurting us as a people, as a community. I mean, and I'm
Exactly.
not even talking about Black people. I'm talking about people, all people,
All people, right.
all people, because we just, we will bury our heads in the sand about things that we have to know about that will directly affect our health, our wealth, our well-being. And, we've just got to be more aware. And the other thing I was going to say, Yvonne, that's so interesting that you say, as long as we've been dealing with sickle cell, these things were not in place earlier to let people like Shantae. Now, I don't know how old you are, Shantae, but you got your oldest is, what'd you say, 21?
She's 20 something.
So, right. I know that's right, girl. So Shantae's not 20 years old. You know what I'm saying? So for 20 years, I mean, we should have had something in place to let her know, hey, you've got this trait, and her and the children's father too.
But Trey, even now we have patients who have a baby with the trait, and they still were not aware that they had the trait. But we do offer newborn screening clinics.
Yeah, that's good.
We do send letters to parents. Now, all parents don't come or don't respond. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So so sometimes that's the missing link.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But that's not always the missing link. Some of it was just people just were not did not know.
Well, I want to ask you about resources and support groups. But before I do that, Shantae, I want to ask you, what has worked for you and your children? What do you think has worked for you? If someone is watching or someone wants some information about how can I get through this with my family, what would you say to them? What's worked for you guys?
Well, first of all, a whole lot of prayer.
That's right.
And being proactive in addressing this illness. Not being afraid to reach out and ask somebody to help you.
Because we can get very proud. Yeah.
Resources and having people like Miss Donald and the other ladies at the foundation that have knowledge of this and that are willing to share their knowledge and help you walk through this journey, because you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah. That's big. Because I'm sure that sometimes, I think when we're going through something, we feel like we're the only one, and it does help to have that support. Let's talk about some of those resources and support as we wrap up, Yvonne, that James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation offer. Yvonne, can you tell us about some of those resources and support?
Yeah, we offer client services. We actually have an emergency client assistance program where if a person does have sickle cell disease in their families, that we can actually offer them assistance with like their utility bills to help, because oftentimes you have a mom like Shantae, if her child gets sick, she sometimes couldn't work. Then you also have patients who have sickle cell disease that it's difficult to maintain gainful employment.
Right.
So there are a lot there's a lot to this equation. So we try to offer services that can assist families, and not just the child or the individual with sickle cell disease, but the entire family. But yeah, we offer nurse case management for individuals who have sickle cell disease. We have nurses that can actually work with them in the treatment of their disease, that can be kind of like a right hand for them to be able to call. So we have community education, nurse case management, the utility assistance, and we also have a LEAP program where we try to identify patients with sickle cell disease and get them enrolled so they can take advantage of the services that we offer. We would have just had a back to school bash. Trey, you're familiar with our back to school bash, our giving tree that we have annually for our patients, and our sickle cell walk. The sickle cell walk was actually postponed to next year, and Johnny Green is going to be our walk ambassador. And Trey,
great.
Per that walk, we've awarded 30 scholarships, and 98% of those young people have actually graduated from college. So we're really proud. And I just want to say that a child with sickle cell disease has just as much potential as any other child, and can achieve just as much and have just as great strides as anyone else. We have young people who have achieved phenomenal strides and are doing amazing things.
Yeah, there's
And
a
so
picture
we
right
are
there.
really,
Shantae and her girls who have graduated.
yes,
So.
yes. And one of the things that we really want to do is make the young people that are coming up today, we want to have them prepared to be financially independent.
Yeah.
And then we have sickle cell warriors who are doing great things. But the biggest thing is we want to shine the light on sickle cell disease. A long time ago, back in the 60s, I don't know if you familiar with the Black Panthers had a all-out campaign. They were one of the first ones to have a campaign.
Really?
Really about sickle cell disease. But shining the light on it.
Yeah.
And it's also a description of our services, on our website. That's www.jamesrclarksicklecell.org. You can call our office at 803-765-9916. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. And we have a calendar of events on Facebook of the events that'll be going on. We have a walk coming up in Florence, a virtual walk on September 19th. And I do also want to mention that we have a series of blood drives going on this month. And on September 19th, the Be Strong group will actually be doing a blood drive. And she does this blood drive every year in honor of her son, Braden. And we want to ask the public to please come out and donate blood because it does matter. We are really trying to encourage diversity in our blood supplies because it does matter whether or not the matching of the blood. And we have a broadcast coming up next week. I think Brenda Green actually has a broadcast coming up on the 11th that the American Red Cross will be explaining even more so the importance of blood donations because blood transfusions help treat sickle cell disease. So I wanted to put that out.
Please give us your website address again and your phone number if people want more information.
www.jamesrclarksicklecell.org. And Trey, I want to thank you so much for having us here today and helping us shine the light on sickle cell disease. You and Michelle have just been starch walrus on our behalf. So we thank you.
No, thank you for allowing me to help. And the Be Strong lady, I know she was that group was on earlier. Please send me the information and we'll be so glad to push it out on this platform. Yvonne Donald, thank you so much for joining us on Coping with COVID. Shantae, good luck to you, girl. God bless you and those babies. They're not babies, they're big kids now. But thank you so much for sharing your story. Actually, Yvonne's going to join us in just a little bit to share with us a scripture that has helped her help her along this journey. And we'll talk to her in just a minute. But right now, it's time for the birthday giveaway. It's my birth month, and you get the gifts.
It's your birthday, shout.
That's right. It's my birth month, and you get the gifts. A Coping with COVID reusable mask, 10 disposable masks from the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities and Palmetto Media Connection, Sabriti Body Butter and Lip Balm, a free service from the European Wax Center, gift certificates from Deneen, the Coffee Queen, and New York High Style, a Jesus Always sampler, and J. Anthony Brown's Hotter Than a Mofo products. It's my birthday, and you get the gifts. And it's time for you to win right now on Coping with COVID.
I'ma help you celebrate your birthday, shout.
Good luck.
All right, it's time now for you to win that birthday gift. It's my birthday and you get the prizes. Okay, here's the question. I had two questions in mind, but here's the other question. Yvonne Donald joined us from the James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation. Do you remember how many years she said she's been at the James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation? The first person to post how many years Yvonne has been at the James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation, you get the Coping with COVID gift pack. That's right. You get a Coping with COVID mask, 10 disposable masks from the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities and also Palmetto Media Connections. Plus, you get gift certificates from Deneen, the Coffee Queen, also European Wax Center, and New York High Style. You also get the Jesus Always sampler and also Sabriti Body Butter. And you also get that James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation mask that Yvonne just offered to give us. So the first person that can tell me how many years did Yvonne say she was at James R. Clark Sickle Cell Foundation? The first person that puts it in the comment section, we're going to hook you up. I want to say hi to Charlene McKnight. She says, thank you Thank you, Charlene. And for the Be Strong group, thank you so much. Make sure you get me that information so that I can be sure to post it out for you. Hey, tomorrow on Coping with COVID, Dominion Energy joins us. Ginger Greenway is going to give us some tips for working and schooling from home. And then we'll talk to Christina Freeway. She says she's got some information about payment plans and payment arrangements. That's Thursday on Coping with COVID. Hey, Shelly, thank you so much. She's not 30 years, and Brittany said 10 years. Not 10, Brittany, hey girl, and not 30. But I will say this, it's between Brittany and Shelly. There's your hint. Also, Faith Friday, this Friday, we're going to be joined with Jennifer Bishop. She's the First Lady of Grace Christian Center. She's got a great new book, Get Up and Go Be Great. We're going to talk to her about that. And then on Saturday, we'll talk to Kevin Raspberry and also Tiffany James. She is part of an organization that's doing an incredible fundraiser, Sing Out Columbia, to help COVID victims. So that's coming up next this week on Coping with COVID. All right, Doris Ely. Doris Ely said 22 years. Doris, you're the winner. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And thank you so much for watching Coping with COVID. Now you keep watching for your chance to win Monday through Saturday at 2 p.m., airing live on Facebook Live, IG, and YouTube. It's my birthday, and you get the gifts on Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.
Hey, congratulations once again to Doris Ely. Hey, S. Janae Brooks. I'm sorry it wasn't 25 years. Michelle says, praise the Lord, we now have sickle cell senior citizens. That's right. And Charlene McKnight also tried to win, but Doris Ely got the prize. Right, Yvonne? She was right? 22 years?
Yes, that's right. That's correct.
Great. All right. So again, you get the prize, and yay, we're so glad for you, Doris. Somebody from the Coping with COVID team is going to contact you to get your address so we can send your prize out. I typically lead with a reading from Jesus Calling, but Yvonne said that she has a scripture and a testimony that has helped her through her journey, and I wanted you to share that. And it was so in line with what I was going to read today. What I was going to read was walk with me along your path of trust. The most direct route between point A and point B on your life journey is the path of unwavering trust in me. Jesus Calling says, look to me and whisper, I trust you, Jesus. This affirmation will help you get back on track. It says this simple act of faith will help you walk along the straight path of life with me. Trust me with all of your heart, and I will make your path straight. And Yvonne, this is so similar to what you said you were going to share. Tell us about your favorite scripture.
My favorite scripture, and I have it all over my house, even in my office, is that, but with God, all things are possible.
All things are possible.
And
that's
scripture,
trust. That's my trust. Yeah.
Yeah. That scripture has blessed me so much when not only faced with challenges, but at times when someone told me, well, that can't happen, or they won't respond, or, but you don't know until you try.
That's right. And you said that you got that when you were very young, when you were in high school. Young. Tell us that story.
When I was very young in high school, I thought about running for Miss Senior, and I said, oh, well, maybe not. I probably won't win. I said, but you know what? I'm going to try. And I ran and I won. I won overwhelmingly. And I said, it taught me a lesson. I said, you know what? You miss out on a lot when you just don't take that first step and make the effort. So it taught me a valuable lesson. And I'm a graduate of C.A. Johnson High School, class of 1975. But winning Miss Senior, just stepping out on faith and running when I really thought, well, I probably wouldn't win, but I tried anyway. I did win, and I won overwhelmingly. And Trey, on that note, could I just mention one thing? I think I forgot to mention our virtual walk in Florence on September 9th. And anyone from the Florence Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta, and sign up is at the www.jamesrclarksicklecell.org. I wanted to please plug that too. So thank you for
Absolutely.
giving me space to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, send me
I
that
appreciate
information.
it.
We'll continue to post and share it. Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Yvonne Donald, thank you so much for joining us on a Coping with COVID. And thank you so much for your advocacy for over 20 years for people who are warriors, as Shante said, of sickle cell. Thank you so much. Again, I'm Trey Taylor. Thank you so much for joining us on Coping with COVID. Until the next time, I wish you peace, abundant blessings. Please wear your mask over your nose and under your chin. Have a great day.
Coping with COVID and In It Together present Wellness Wednesday, brought to you by the Diabetes Advisory Council of South Carolina and DHEC's Division of Diabetes and Heart Disease Management.
Coping with COVID with Trey Taylor.
Hey, good afternoon, guys.